All right, Steve, we got to talk about this. I know this is a little near and dear to your heart, but this deserves talking to. The Gonzaga women's basketball team is on the rise, and we need to pay attention to them a little more. Currently ranked 17th in the nation, but is currently on a 12-game winning streak ever since their loss to Stanford. Things just kind of turned around for them. Now they're currently sitting at 19-2 and deserve a lot of attention. This is a team that is just continuing to stay hot, and I am worried about any competitor, any team that has to face the Lady Zags. I mean, this is going to be a very tough team as we're getting into the thick of the season. This is a great time to get hot, and it looks like they're staying hot so far.
Yeah, and what I find so puzzling is, okay, we always whine about the AP voters, and that gets kind of old, sort of. I mean, I kind of like keeping those digs into them.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah, but I'm a little surprised that on the coaches poll, they still aren't getting the love. It's almost like, well, it's the WCC. I mean, who are they really playing? Well, they were doing really well before they started conference play, and they're just feeding on these teams. It's not like St. Mary's was a poor team, and it's just a shame that they're not getting the respect. If you're talking to the coaches that they've played this year, both non-conference and in the West Coast Conference, I guarantee you this team is in the top 10, if not the top 5 in their minds, because they know how solid that this team is. And Lisa Fortier, she's like, she's the distaff version of Mark Few. I mean, she really does a great job finding talent, outside of the continental United States. She really minds her area and the Pacific Northwest pretty well. She really does a great job mixing and matching. It seems like somebody steps up, maybe not as the leading scorer every game, because that's pretty much going to fall down to Yvonne Abrams. She's going to pretty much be the leading scorer, every night for the most part for the Lady Bulldogs. But I really hope that people start paying attention. That's why I love talking about, yes, I have a Gonzaga bias. Okay. There's East Coast bias. I have a Gonzaga bias. Everybody, even though I didn't get to go to school because I was accepted there and offered a scholarship, I consider myself a Gonzaga alum, because now it's really cool to be a Gonzaga alum, as opposed to back in the 70s and nobody knew who Gonzaga was. So now I'm trying to like milk that after the fact. But I mean, I love talking about teams like this, because maybe now people are going to pay attention, and especially in the women's game. Women's basketball fans really do want to learn about all conferences and all programs. It's not just, it's the Big East is better, or the ACC is better, or the Big Ten's better, or the Big 12s. I mean, they really want to find out about these other teams, and that's because on a lot of levels, I think the women's tournament the last several years has been far more exciting than the men's. Even when you have dominating teams ultimately coming into the Final Four, as that build up in the tournament, I think is far more exciting and far more I don't bet the women's tournament until much later, because you honestly, you never really know what's going to happen in those early rounds.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Let's go back to Jem, because she's been absolutely electric for Gonzaga so far this season. She's averaging 16.8 points a game, 8.2 rebounds. Both of those are good enough to be in the top 100 in the nation. She has 4 double-doubles so far this season, and 3 of the 5 double-doubles or 3 of her last 5 games have also been double-doubles. So she's definitely on the rise, and she's only a junior. That's the best part I like about that. Yeah, so I'm really big fan of Ejim in this one, and that's just the start of this Gonzaga team. I mean, they have 4 players who average 10 points or more per game. They look fantastic when they're shooting. They're averaging almost 75 points per game, which is fantastic. They shoot almost 50% from the field, 46 on the season. This team is on the rise, and I want people to pay attention more to that, because right now it's really easy to pay attention to UConn, South Carolina, Ohio State, the Iowas, because the Iowa game was fantastic against Ohio State just recently. But Gonzaga is one of those teams that you do not want to sleep on. And we want to help you out here as you're getting ready, starting to prep up your brackets. You don't want one of those teams, because Gonzaga screams bracket buster all over the place. So keep that in mind moving forward as we get closer and closer to March.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's great because you have the star. Okay. Yvonne Abrams, the star. but the complementary players around her. I mean, Trong just is a terrific game manager. I mean, I think she has really great court vision. I like the way that she doesn't force the issues. She almost helps orchestrate and create scoring opportunities, for her teammates. I really like her game, and it's a deep roster. I mean, Lisa Fortier has a lot of weapons at her disposal where if she wants to play small, she can. If she wants to maybe try to move the ball, more into the paint, she can do that. So this is a team that has everything. Okay. It's guard play, guard play, guard play. Yes. They have a great, tandem of guards, actually more than a tandem. I mean, there's probably 3 or 4 really good Division I guards on this roster. So yeah, you wake up. It's not just the men's, with Gonzaga. We all know the story of the men's. It's the nice little Cinderella story, if you will. But in essence, since it's a women's game, let's call this the Cinderella team, because I don't think a lot of national publications and writers had Gonzaga even going to be, if they were going to be ranked, it was going to be down in the lower, with 21, 22, 23, down to 25. I think that's probably the best. I think that most people were looking at them. They have earned their way up the rankings, and hopefully the coaches will start paying attention to teams outside of their conference, and it's a good year for teams like Gonzaga to start moving up, because for the first time, and I don't know how long, there's been no women's team from Texas is in the top 25.
I know. It's crazy.
I mean, that's just, it's unfathomable to me to not think that a team is hanging in, like a Baylor, or Texas. I mean, a team, there's no Texas teams. And when you think of women's basketball, you don't necessarily think of Texas. But if you look at the rankings at the beginning, end of every year, there's several, Texas schools that are in there.
Yeah.
So there are opportunities being created for programs like Gonzaga, for maybe non-traditional teams in other conferences as well, and some of the smaller conferences, to kind of make their case for moving up in the standings. So I keep saying this is the best year ever in collegiate women's basketball. So if you're the casual women's basketball fan, now you're getting weekend games on even over-the-air networks. Obviously, ABC. You're getting over-the-air network games on Fox now. These games are much more readily available. ESPN does a really nice job with its networks on Sundays, promoting the women's games. You've got the individual conference networks that actually have it. So, if you're that casual, snobbish, they play like girls kind of dopes that you sit next to at the bar when you're watching a women's game. Oh, they're playing like girls. Women's basketball fundamentally is far superior to the men's game. And I'll say the same thing about the WNBA versus the NBA, but this is a college, podcast. We're not going to dwell on the professional ranks, but start paying attention to teams like Gonzaga. You'll thank us later.
Yep, absolutely agree. And going back to the thing on Texas women's basketball, that is definitely not an afterthought. Injuries have just plagued teams like Texas so far this year. It's just been absolutely crazy. I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, Gonzaga, what a team. This team, I think, deserves to be a top 15 team once the new rankings come out on Monday. I know they're just slightly there, but if they keep winning, there's no reason in my mind why they shouldn't. We got a lot of teams that deserve to be in that top 15. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good teams this year. This is, as you keep mentioning, one of the best seasons that we're going to see. This might be the best tournament we've ever seen for the women's side, because there are so many teams, so many deep teams. Right now, we're talking how good Gonzaga is, and we have them ranked 17. And I think they might be able to go up just a little more spots. That's how good this rankings is. And for the most part, how right I think the AP is starting to get them, maybe moving one up and down. I like to dig at them too, but they're starting to figure it out. They're getting a lot better than they did at the beginning of the season. As for Gonzaga, on Thursday, they're going to take on Loyola Marymount. That should be a win for them. They're at the bottom of the conference. Gonzaga has not lost in the conference yet, 9-0. Second place is Portland. Well, that one loss for Portland, they are 8-1, came to Gonzaga. Right. So they are looking really good in this one. They have not lost at home yet this season. So hosting LMU should be a win. They're also going to host Pepperdine at the end of the month. So that's how they're going to end the month. Both those teams are at the bottom of the conference. So you have to think that they can go 11-0 heading into February in the conference. That's huge. And again, that should be well deserved of a top 15 ranking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think LMU will give them fits early. I don't know, think they have the staying power to hang with them for an entire game, and that I think that's you can be said that about a lot of women's programs. If you're going to say there's an Achilles heel with the Gonzaga program right now, is that sometimes they get off to a slower start, but so does South Carolina. That doesn't really stop them. I mean, they turn things around. And again, I'm not saying that Gonzaga is on the level of South Carolina yet, but they're getting there. This is a program that's not. It's just a really young program. I mean, basically, it's primarily juniors and sophomores getting the big minutes, but there's a lot of freshmen that are contributing as well. So that bodes well. What bodes well for the national scene as far as the WCC representation. I'm not sure how well the coaches in the WCC feel about Gonzaga being this solid of a program.
We can't be the only one who has paid attention to this Gonzaga team so far in the season. Are you one of them? Have you paid attention to them at all? If not, go ahead and start looking up on YouTube and start Googling some of the highlights and do whatever you need to do, because this team is hot and they are continuing in a really good pace and deserve to be a top 15 team really soon. Bracket busting team. I'm absolutely telling you, pay attention. If you're one of those people who want to have a perfect bracket, right? Warren Buffett calling on the phone, make sure you're paying attention to teams like Gonzaga. It's going to be a very fun February and March for college basketball. Let us know your thoughts in the comment description below. Hit like and subscribe while you're there. And thanks for watching. Slasher U.